Man, OsamaSon is, man, he's just such trash, man. And he's just like a carbon copy of King Carson, but honestly in the worst way possible. It's just like a terrible version of Recycling Bin, and it's just like broken in half. Like, that's just how interesting he is. And on his track Summer 16 off of Osama Season is literally a copy and paste of what King Carson is. He's just doing a much, much worse version of King Carson, and in my opinion, it's ridiculous. So let's just kind of get into why I think he's a terrible version of King Carson. On his track X and Sex, he even used the name, like, King Carson's last project was called X. Then he had a project called Project X, and he names his most popular song X and Sex, and it's like a 59 or 58-second song that sounds exactly like King Carson. You know what I mean? I mean, it definitely still slaps, but you're literally just copying Ken Carson, man. And it's absolutely ridiculous and disgusting. Like, what are you doing, man? I mean, obviously, it's definitely working, but at the same time, it's what are you doing? You're literally copying Ken Carson, man. And then on the track Kutta off of Osama Season, again, another carbon copy of Ken Carson. And what it kind of reminds me of is, like the track Freestyle, like the whole Freestyle series off of King Carson's Project X. There's like Freestyle 1, Freestyle 2, Freestyle 3. Freestyle 1 is pretty heavy. Freestyle 2 is pretty good too. When I first heard the whole Freestyle series, I thought it was absolutely dumpster juice. But then after seeing some like live clips of him just like bumping it and just doing so well live with it, I'm like, oh, maybe this song is actually a lot better than I thought it was. You know what I mean? It definitely grew on me off of Project X. Do not be more obvious in copying Ken Carson with the track Kutta. Another thing I would want to mention is, I thought King Carson's vocal presets and settings were probably the worst I've ever heard. Like, worse than the super catchy song back in like 2009 where it was like do 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 do. But in reality, like it ended up evolving to a lot better preset on the album X. But even on Project X and even his previous projects, his vocal settings, Ken Carson's, were just so garbage. Like the autotune was super out of pitch. He didn't know how to sing, and it was just all over the place, you know what I mean? But now I grew to actually enjoy it. It kind of works sonically with King Carson. It's kind of like a rage hyperpop robot. That's just kind of how I think of King Carson, kind of like a torpedo, just flying around the pocket and stuff like that. But what's super weird, OsamaSon did the exact same thing and using a really terrible auto-tune preset and mixing on his tracks. And the good examples all over OsamaSon Season. And why, like, you're copying Ken Carson to the T, to the point you're copying his shitty presets? Is that not a carbon copy? Like, that's exactly a carbon copy. I don't understand. It's super, super weird in my opinion.